level of depth I need to talk about regarding the surah so that everyone attending finds it beneficial. I've done this in Arabic before. And it's easy because those who are reading the words in Arabic know I know how much they understand from what's being read. I already know how much they actually understand what's being read, so I know what to talk about in terms of making sure that the theme, the purpose, the background information is making its way. But when I do this in English, I'm not sure how much you actually know, that those who are listening to me, how much they actually know from what's being explained. So I'm not sure how detailed do I need to go into this so it makes sense, because I think I have different levels of Arabic proficiency amongst those who are listening to me. So it's a bit of a tricky thing. This is not as easy as I thought it was going to be initially. Doing it in English, so I'm going to need some help after each session. I would appreciate, we're going to put up inshallah a Google Sheet probably today or tomorrow. Appreciate some feedback, anything at all that you can say can help me. Just give me an idea of what, you just tell me this was too boring, it was too deep, it was too. And I'll make sure that these slides are also posted on the website. Every time you finish a surah, the slides regarding the surah will be posted, and then you can use them as well later on if you find them if you found them beneficial initially listening to me. But we'll see how it works. Now, so last time I'll go through what we did last time. So last time we began with Surat Al-Fatiha. So before starting, there are 7 points that I made. These are important points. You need to carry them with you in order for this study to be of any benefit at all. Understanding that each surah has 2 coordinates. They were the time it was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, is it clear? And the time and the sequence it has in the Quran. So with the sequence of its revelation and the sequence that it has in the Mus'haf itself, it gives it 2 coordinates. So it's important that that you understand that, because it gives the surah some level of each surah a certain level of dynamic. It gives it a different dynamic. Each surah has a different dynamic based on that they have different. That it was revealed at one point, and then it was put in the Quran in a different way, and that gives you 2 ways of looking at it, and it makes this surah a bit more interesting. Second point was that the reasons for revelation or coexisting incidents are important to understand. I don't like the word reason for revelation, even though that's what we use, asbab and nuzul, we say that a lot. It's not a very good, most scholars don't like that word, because the Quran was going to be revealed whether that incident happened or not. It was a coexisting incident that helps us understand a bit more about the ayah. It gives us some background, some context. Understanding that a lot of these coexisting incidents aren't sahih. A lot of them aren't. A lot of them meaning, a lot of the stories, and I'll talk about them as we go along. Inshallah, I'll point out which ones are authentic and which ones aren't, so that you find benefits, so you can actually know that going in or thinking about the surah content or reflecting upon the surah later. Third point, so understanding phrases and linguistic complexes. There are certain words that are used in the Quran and they have specific meanings. Outside the Quran they can mean different things, but when they're used in the Quran, this is what they mean. And knowing that is important. That takes time. I can't break that down in 1 or 2 sessions. That'll just be done throughout the study. I'll point out certain phrases for you, certain linguistic complexes. If you understand what he just said, when he says this subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what he means, then you should be okay, knowing that that's what he means. I gave you an example last time when he says yahdi man yasha or yudillu man yasha. What that means is that the person has chosen guidance or has chosen misguidance, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has moved him along with what he has chosen. It's not that he has forced him to do. It's very important. That is repeated in the Quran many, many times. If you choose to understand it in a different way, then it messes up the whole way you understand the Quran, and that's not what he's saying, subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course there are a lot of evidence to support these, my claims, basically. But that's not the point of this study, to give you all the evidence. It's more just explaining to you the complexes of what they mean. The 4th point was surah structures. There are anchor verses. Ayat mihwariyya, a verse that is that's extremely important in the surah. Sometimes we have more than one in the surah. Sometimes it's just one. The surah can be built on paragraphs with no anchor verses, just one paragraph after the other. It can have build-ups. It can be building up to an anchor verse. The whole surah is just a build-up, and then the anchor verse is at the end. Or it could be the opposite. The anchor verse at the beginning, and it's just commentary. Or we can have division into multiple parts. I mean, the surah has 2 or 3 parts. It's not paragraphs, it's just parts. This part talks about this part talks about that. And that's how the surahs of the Quran, these are examples of how the surahs of the Quran are structured. Point after that was knowing context and circumstances. It's very important for us to know what was happening when this surah was revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, and what was going on in the background. What was he personally going through? What were the Sahaba going through? Why is this story there? What is he talking about, subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because if you read Surah Al-Tawbah, for example, with no understanding of context and circumstances, you can completely misunderstand the whole religion. The whole religion can be misunderstood very simply if you just don't understand when this surah was revealed, what was happening at the time of revelation. But if you do, You have some understanding of context, some understanding of circumstances. It becomes very, very easy and very clear. And it gives you actually a very, very solid compass in how to deal with issues of that similarity or of that nature. Point after that, recognizing story uniqueness, usage of words, choice of commands, meaning when there's a story that's only here, or a part of the story that's only brought about in this surah. Meaning Surah Musa, for example, is out 73 times in the Quran. But the story of the Samaritan, only in Surah Al-Taha, nowhere else is this ever spoken of. The story of Musa and his mother, only in Surah Al-Qasas. That's important, that's unique, that's important, you have to know that. You're going to say, oh, it's another story of Musa. No, that's not how it is. This part is nowhere else in the Quran. The story of Ahl al-Kahf, only in Surah Al-Kahf, it's not spoken of elsewhere. That uniqueness is very important for you. Because it gives you an understanding what the surah is talking about. Sometimes there's a word that you only find this word in this surah. You don't find it elsewhere. That's very important. Understanding that word and spending some time, it gives you some understanding, some idea of what the surah is talking about. Same thing of choice of commands. Not every surah has all the commands. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands certain things in certain surahs. But because we deal with the Quran as just one big jumbo word mix, we don't really look at when he talks about this command in this surah specifically, he doesn't talk about it in a different one. That's important. And when you start seeing those differences, you start to understand, oh, now I understand why obviously he's going to talk about this here. And it's obvious that he wouldn't talk about that there. And things start to crystallize and become clearer. Last point, the one-timers, similar to what I said, the one-time words and one-time stories, I kind of mixed those up together. But uniqueness is one thing, meaning certain things only coming in a certain way. And then the one-timers, when you have one word that's not repeated elsewhere, a story that's not repeated elsewhere. These are 7 points that are important to kind of keep an eye out for. Even if you're not listening to this, even if you never come to another halaqah of this, of these again, or you never ever want to listen to someone else talking about tafseer, if you can keep these points in mind as you're doing your own reflection, you'll be okay. You'll be able to guide your way through it, inshallah. If you just keep these things in mind, because it will, inshallah, allow you to reflect appropriately. Or else your reflection or your contemplation will be mixed up. And one of the biggest problems we have in our era, or within our time, is the copy-pasting of the Quran, or the misusage of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They misuse them. And sometimes I hear people quoting an ayah, and I want to throw myself off a balcony. What are you doing? The ayah you quoted has nothing to do with what you're saying, but it's not, I can't say anything, and I know that you have no idea what this surah is talking about. Yes, maybe the words that you said can be understood the way you said them, but that's not what the ayah is talking about at all. That's a horrible misusage of that verse. You just have to look what's before and what's after, and you'll know what he's saying, subhanahu wa ta'ala. You have to take time to look at the thing from a holistic, or at the surah or the ayah from a holistic perspective. Those are 7 points I talked about last time. And forgive me if this is boring or I'm repeating myself, it's just trying to go through the slides now. I have slides, so I have to go through the slides. First one after that, Surah Al-Fatiha. Surah Al-Fatiha, I choose on purpose not to go in depth. I learned Surah Al-Fatiha from 3 different scholars when I was younger. Each time it would take over a year to go through the surah in detail. And that's how I was taught to learn it, and that's how I was taught to teach it. So I don't know how to do it slowly or quickly. So I'm choosing not to actually go in depth in Surah Al-Fatiha. Leave it till later. We can go through the Quran, because once you go through the whole Quran, and you'll be amazed by the end of this, inshallah, if we're able, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us enough time and life for us to go through the whole study. At the end of it, you'll be amazed of how perfectly organized this book is, and how structured it is, and how we just never saw it like that for so long. And then when we talk about Surah Al-Fatiha, it'll mean something to you, because now you have a better understanding of everything else. But it is important to understand that is the key of the Quran. Everything is understood based on the meanings of Surah Al-Fatiha. It's the key for you can't recite another surah without Surah Al-Fatiha first. That is the law. That's the law of the land. That's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants things to be done. That's His choice. That's what He commanded. That's what He called it. To put it at the beginning of the Quran. We really have no choice in this. But alhamdulillah, because it gives us so much to think about. There are 7 things in Surah Al-Fatiha. Of course, again, what I say here are years of ijtihad, of trying to break down stuff. So you may have different ideas. That's fine. I'm not here to argue with anyone or fight with them. I'm telling you you understood it was wrong. I'm just telling you how I see it. Seeing the Quran through my lens. They may be right, they may be wrong. This is what I can offer. So maybe other scholars will say, oh, there's 15 themes. This guy who's teaching you is an idiot. No, it's more of this is what I see. These are the 7 basic themes. I am aware that Fatiha has much more deep than these 7 points, but these are the big 7 points. You can't miss these. I mean, if you miss other stuff, you may be, you can't be faulted that much because it takes a scholarly level of understanding. But these 7 things you have to be aware of. These are the 7 points that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose to put in the key of the Quran. The key that will guide your understanding of the book. These are the 7 things you want to talk about. Do not forget them. Make sure they're always in your mind as you're understanding the Quran. They help me a lot in everything that I do when I'm trying to do tafsir or explain. These 7 points are always in my mind. Number 1, the universality of the deen. Something that we've lost maybe 200 or 300 years ago, it dropped off the mar, we don't have it anymore. The universality of the deen, that this deen came for all. It is not specific for a race, it's not specific for an ethnicity, it's not specific for a gender definitely, and it's not specific to a certain type of people. It's for everyone. Everyone has the right and the obligation, the ability to benefit and to learn the deen, and He is Rabbil Alameen subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 2, mercy, the concept of compassion. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim again. The concept of compassion. That He is compassionate subhanahu wa ta'ala towards everyone and specifically towards those who love Him, and that's what an ethic and a moral that we carry in our life that is extremely important to continue to understand. Number 3, service. We are iyyaka na'budu. We are here to do ibadah. We are abid, ibad. We are here to serve. There's really no other purpose. If you lose that concept, if you lose your way in life and forgetting that you're here to serve, then everything else you do will be contaminated and will be manipulated and won't really serve its purpose because you don't know what you're here to do. We're not here to control people. I'm not here to control you. I'm not here to brainwash you. I'm here to serve you. Try and explain things for you so you can make your choices in an educated manner. That's my job. My job is to make sure that if you don't know something and I know it, that I offer it to you so that you understand it and that you know it so that you can continue to do your job the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to do it. Service is a very important part of this deen. I know I've said this a lot. I know it's boring. Think about it. It's one of those. You know when you watch those superhero movies? There's always that huge, I don't know, high-tech gun that can shoot this beam of laser that can end the war and fix everything. And somewhere in the core of it, there's this small crystal or whatever that they need, and the hero's fighting to get this little small thing to put it in there so it'll fit. And the whole this huge gun won't work at all. Without it, nothing will happen. I believe that service is one of them. That service, the concept of service, is one of those core concepts that someone took out. So this huge system of Islam is not working. It's not doing anything because we don't know what we're here to do. We forgot that we're here to serve, that there's really nothing else for us to do. Number 4, belonging to an ummah. Remembering that you're part of a group. You don't function individually in this world as a Muslim. You function in a group, in a community. As an ummah, the ummah itself is not the largest scheme. Actually, the largest scheme is humanity. That's the largest way of looking at it. We're part of a human race. And the smaller that, the ummah of Islam. And the smaller of that, the community that you live in. And the smaller than that, your family, your extended family, the arhamak, the people that are related to you. And smaller than that, your small unit, your husband or your wife, your children. So these units, you're part of a bigger group, and the best interest of those groups is your best interest as well, and you have to care for that. You can't act like it's not important. Number 5, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fact that He is the praiseworthy, that He is hamdu. The alhamd is an eternal attribute that will continue to be His subhanahu wa ta'ala, regardless of what happens, that He is the only one that is worthy of that. The oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, at Tawheed. Of course, at Tawheed. How could Surat Al-Fatiha not have Tawheed in it? It's the most important point of our deen. Number 6, guidance. What does that mean? Meaning that we are oriented to always want guidance. We can never get enough of it. There's never a point where we've had enough guidance. We're good. I'm good. You always need guidance. Every day you should be guided a bit more. You can always tweak the way you do things. You can always improve yourself. You can always be a bit better. That never ends. You ask Him to guide you at least 17 times a day in your prayers. You ask Him, guide me. Well, I already guided you. No, there's no end to this. And there's an infinite amount of steps that will bring you closer to God. That doesn't work in physics. Right? There's a certain point where you're on top of whatever it is you're coming close to. Coming close, then you're stuck. You fuse. But to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's an infinite amount of steps that can bring you closser. You can always get closer. Why? Because He is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's how it works. You can never say, I'm as close as I can be. No, you can always get closer. To Yawm al-Qiyamah? No, after Yawm al-Qiyamah. To infinity in Jannah, you can always be closer to God. You can always get closer. There's no point where you're the closest you can ever be. That's why guidance never ends. Guidance. The last point is integrity. Integrity. Integrity in Arabic is istiqama. Surat Al-Mustaqim. Being someone who has integrity, who will not lie, who will not cheat, who will not be a hypocrite, who won't do things in an improper way, who will always do it the right way, always speak the truth, always be honest, always be trustworthy. The concept of integrity, that's what we live by. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, Ya Rasulullah, tell me, break down the deen, simplify it for me. What do you say? Qul, say, amantu billah, say it. Say, amantu billah, say that I believe in Allah. So he said it, thumma istaqim, and just walk a straight line. What, he means it literally? So this guy just stand up and start walking in a straight line? No, he understood what he meant. You understand what he means as well. It means have integrity. Continue to live your life properly. Don't lie, don't cheat, be someone honest, be someone trustworthy. If you say something, stick to it. If you believe in something, live your life for it. Dedicate yourself to what is right. That's what integrity is. And those are the 7 themes of Surah Al-Fatiha. We'll continue to carry them with us as we go through the Quran. There will be no point in the Quran where one of these 7 will drop off. And we're going to talk about the surah, but we're going to put aside mercy. We're going to put aside service. We're going to put aside being an ummah. No. These ones are constant. They're all through the Mus'haf. Until Surah Al-Nas. Every time, all 7 apply. And you say, every surah in the Quran, all 7 apply to it. That all, on its own, that gives you some level of clarity when you're reading a surah. There is no surah that these 7, all 7 of them doesn't apply to. All 7 have to apply to all the time. Every ayah, all 7 apply to all the time. So if you understand that, when you look at a surah, an ayah, you're like, I already know something about this ayah. It has to be something, it has to be an ayah that is enhancing or that is advocating for universality and mercy and service and belonging to an ummah, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and increase of guidance and integrity. It can't do anything else. So it's almost impossible to misunderstand an ayah if you have these 7. It's almost impossible to misunderstand an ayah in the Quran if these 7 are always there. It's impossible. I've already given you you'll never misunderstand an ayah in the Quran if you have these